Clen versus Salbutamol. What is better for fat loss? What is more sustainable for your health goals? And what should you be using? This is the battle of Clen versus Salb, and I'm going to help you through it. So everyone knows what Clen is. Clen is everywhere. If you look on any online shady steroid store, you're going to find Clenbuterol. If you talk to anyone about cutting, what's the best drug for fat loss? People are going to say Clenbuterol, obviously. There's even an old adage, eat Clen, Tren Hard, and never give up. Everyone knows about Clen, literally everyone. I knew about Clen before I knew anything about steroids. Clen is a household name for fat loss drugs. But what about salbutamol, a lesser known fat loss agent which works through exactly the same mechanism as clenbuterol through the beta-2 androgenic receptor. These receptors are the things that are responsible for the fat loss as well as the muscle accrual, which you can see through Clen and Salb administration. There are tons of studies out there done on rodents as well as I think a few on humans which show the muscle accrual and fat loss benefits through these agents, and this is why it's used in doping. For example, why I think it was Manny Pacquiao, the boxer, who tested positive for clenbuterol and claimed it was in spiked meat because it gives you performance benefits as well as fat loss. But it's both of them are bad for you. Leveraging the beta-2 adrenergic receptor is not the healthy way to go about fat loss. It simply isn't. It's very effective, but it's not healthy. And the reason for that is because it basically stimulates fight or flight. You're going to be in a sympathetic state when these drugs are acting on your system. You're going to be fidgety, you're going to be anxious, you're going to have tremors, you're going to feel wired. And honestly, that's not good for you. You need to be in parasympathetic state as well as sympathetic to leverage health benefits as well as some performance outcomes. Also, why do I recommend clenbuterol to be avoided but salbutamol to be taken instead? And simply put, that's down to the half-lives. Clenbuterol has a half-life of 35 hours, meaning that if you're taking clenbuterol every single day, that means your dose is going to increase every day that you take it. So if you take 10 micrograms on Monday and 10 micrograms on Tuesday, you're not getting the same dose on both those days. You're getting more on the second day than you're on the first, and then more on the third day until you reach your saturation. So you're getting more than you bargained for, which is generally why people claim Clen to be better, because it works harder. Salbutamol, on the other hand, has a half-life of roughly 6 hours in humans via oral consumption. Not IV, not inhaler, oral. Meaning that after 12 hours, there's 2 half-lives, only a quarter remains in your system, which means you're going to be less wired, you're going to be less fight or flighty. It's going to be easier to get into that sympathetic state than if you're on clenbuterol. But why is that important other than just redlining yourself? Well, I think it should be quite self-explanatory. If you're redlining yourself, you're not going to get as much sleep or as good quality of sleep. And we know that when sleep quality is disturbed and it goes down, you start getting all kinds of side effects around. You could get increased risk of diabetes, blood pressure, heart attacks, strokes, mental damage, accrual over time. All these things can happen through chronic and prolonged sleep disturbance. And obviously short-term durations aren't going to be as chronic or as acute, but you're still going to get negative outcomes from it, which I think can be avoided. That, combined with the normal side effects of having beta-2 adrenergic receptor activation, for example, increased heart rate, which can then lead to myocardial infarctions, heart hypertrophy, as well as risks of all-cause mortality, especially around things like strokes and heart attack. So now you combine sleep disturbance, which raises your blood pressure and increases risks of things like heart attacks and strokes, and you're taking a drug which actually stimulates the heart to beat harder and faster and slowly cause damage within the heart, you can kind of see why I'm advising against the use of these drugs. I think it's kind of self-explanatory at this point. However, again walks in salbutamol. If you're taking salbutamol, you're not going to be fucking up your sleep. So though yes, over a long-term use, chronic use of salbutamol, you will be affecting your heart. You will be getting the same sort of issues. You are going to get hypertrophy of the heart and myocardial infarctions. Those things can still happen with salbutamol over chronic use, but you're lowering your overall risk factor. Your risk burden is less because your sleep starts to be as fucked up. Obviously, if you're taking salbutamol in the evening or midday, then your sleep is going to be fucked up and you're going to be running the same issues as if you just ran Clen. Still not to the same degree because the half-life is so much shorter, but you're still going to run into these issues. The best way to take salbutamol is first thing in the morning and just take one dose. Dosings can start anywhere between 4 milligrams up to 36 milligrams. They normally come in 4 milligram tablets, at least the ones I'm familiar with anyway. Ideally, you titrate up because there are issues with it. For example, it can deplete your potassium levels, which can also really fuck up your electrolytes, which can give you cramping. The same thing has with clenbuterol. I'm sure people who've taken Clen kind of tested the cramping you can experience just fucking walking down the street. You walk down the street and your calf will cramp up like crazy, and that's just due to electrolyte imbalances. So it's worthwhile eating things like bananas or potato skins to help with potassium retention. I have seen people bring up the fact that in rat studies, rodent studies, clenbuterol dose equated to salbutamol produces overall higher outcomes for both strength and fat loss, body composition, than salbutamol. And yes, they do. And you can probably assume the same outcome will be for humans as well, although obviously not all rat studies can equate one-to-one with humans, but I do suspect Clen is stronger than Salb. But are the risks worth the reward? In my opinion, no. Bodybuilding has always been a marathon. It's never a race. Never, ever, ever. The guys you see stepping on stage, it isn't their first cycle. It isn't their second cycle. They've been doing this for years. It's a slow accrual of muscle mass in proportion to your fat, more muscle mass towards what kind of fat you're carrying over years rather than sprints. And that's because longevity is incredibly important. The more you look after your body during your cycles, the longer you can do it for without negatively impacting your health to a serious degree. Obviously, none of these things that we do are healthy, but you can lower the risk factors. Now, I have seen some people take or claim you can take beta blockers such as propranolol, nebivolol, all those kind of things to help reduce the negative effects of Salb and Clen. But how do these things work? They're blocking the beta-2 adrenergic receptor. How does Clen and salbutamol work? Well, they activate them. So now you just have two compounds which are fighting over the same receptor class. One was trying to activate them, produce the fat loss and muscle growth, and one trying to basically block them to stop these things from happening. So by taking beta blockers, you're essentially just nullifying the effects of the drug you're trying to take. So basically just having expensive piss with a bit of, fuckery going on with your body. So don't take beta blockers with beta-2 adrenergic receptor agonists because it's not going to work. You're wasting your money. If you're that concerned about your heart health and your blood pressure, you shouldn't be taking Clen and Salb anyway. Try and get fat loss through other agents. If you know my content at all, I'm a big advocate for GLP-1 agonists such as semaglutide or liraglutide. I know they're fairly difficult to get hold of, but sources are becoming easier to get hold of, and they're also a lot cheaper than the pharma sources. Other things you can use if you're on PEDs, then using glucocorticoid receptor inhibitors such as Anavar is a better way of going about changing your body composition. Again, it's a slow race. You're taking 10 milligrams of Anavar over a long period of time to get that glucocorticoid receptor inhibition to essentially increase your energy output. I know Trenbolone does the same thing, and I know it's much more strong than Anavar. I'm not arguing that, but obviously Tren comes with its own side effects, and the whole point of this being health conscious and longevity based, I'd rather go for a very low Anavar dose with my testosterone if I was going to go down that route of recomposition or fat loss. Other things you can look to utilize stuff like your yohimbine, which is similar to Clen and salbutamol. Again, not healthy to be using over long periods of time, but it's got a fairly short half-life, so dose it in the morning, and you won't be messing yourself up for the rest of the day. Of course, there's plenty of other options you can use to try and leverage fat loss, but this is supposed to be against Salb and clenbuterol. And if you haven't realized by now, I am very heavily on the salbutamol fence between the two of them. If I was forced to use one of the two, I'd use Salb. I'd dose it once in a day. I'd be cautious with my dosing. I wouldn't take a beta blocker alongside of it. I'd watch my potassium levels. And I would be conscious of my sleep hygiene, using sleep supplements where necessary, like melatonin or my own product, Nick Sleep. But that's what I got for today, guys. Any comments down below, happy to answer them. Maybe do another video in the future. If you don't like listening to me ramble on, I literally just post in written format on my Instagram, so links down below, or I'm coach.neek. And yeah, I'll see you later, guys. Bye.